Welcome back, welcome back. Well, for 5 decades, to much international praise, criticism and bewilderment, Gilbert and George have been making art that is visionary, provocative, image-rich, and, as we just said, bewildering. Their first public piece, the singing sculpture, involved both of them miming on a plinth 42 years ago, and they've been miming on plinths ever since. Today, Gilbert and George are one of the few artists to enjoy international recognition from the general public. A remarkable partnership, and perhaps the longest lasting relationship in the history of art. You can probably think of another one, but we can't right now. The London Pictures, their largest series yet, is a monumental body of 292 pictures portraying a dangerous and unsettling portrait of life in London. I joined Gilbert and George this week. 2 people, Gilbert and George, but one artist, never 2 single artists, one artist, Gilbert and George, at London's White Cube Galleries, to learn more about the inspiration behind their, what shall we say, unusual work. Hey, I gather that there's a rather good story behind how you acquired all these photographs, illustrations.
Well, you know, we're very proud because over a more than 6-year period, every day we stole newspaper posters from outside of the newsagent shops until we got 3,712 of them.
And it was not easy, because we thought we could ask them for the posters, not? But in the moment you ask for the poster, they wonder why, what's going on, what are you trying to do? So we realized it's much better to steal them.
Yes.
And so sometimes we had a problem to steal them. So George had to go into the shop to buy a Mars bar or chewing gum, and I would be outside stealing the poster.
We became very professional. Only once we were caught. An over-enthusiastic policeman came running behind us and wanted to know what it was all about. So we had to think very quickly.
But it's very interesting for us because we thought we were able to create a townscape that we didn't have to depict, no? Just from these, what you call slogans, what is going on.
It's a modern townscape, we believe, of great inclusivity. Old age pensioners, cyclists, Islam, guns.
It's quite depressing, some of the subject matter, of course, but people are fascinated by it, yeah?
In some ways, because we think the posters exist on 2 levels. One is to sell newspapers, obviously,
yeah,
and it would be a silly newspaper that didn't try to sell its copies. But on the other level, we were walking one evening to dinner, and we saw in a block of flats a policeman and a policewoman pressing the bell of a flat. And we thought, oh my dear, what horrors are just going to be told to this family.
Yeah.
And of course, every single text is also a great human tragedy or disaster or shame or unhappiness. And we like that double layer of meaning. We think that the posters and the way we've used them is a celebration of Western freedom. It's the Greek, Roman, Judeo-Christian modern world. This is what we've got so far. There are countries in the world where you can't have a poster with the word sex in it. So it's another freedom. We have pictures with the word arrested or accused, but we don't have the death penalty. So it's another celebration.
But we were reading all these 18th century books and we realized that nothing has changed. No? The violence at that time was just as bad as now. And all to do with killing each other and prostitutes and murders. So nothing has changed in some way. Only we are in some way more liberal now. We are able to accept more.
Yeah.
And although they're the London pictures, the subjects and the activities could just as easily be Johannesburg or Sydney or Chicago or Paris. All over the world, these things are happening. And we think that we like to remind the viewer that we're all complicit in some way. This is the world that we've arranged.
Yeah.
We're all responsible in some way.
It's very interesting that the biggest one is based on murder. We were able to find more posters about murder. And the next one is sex.
And the next one is money.
And money. That's it. That's what life is all about.
That's what you see if you come to this exhibition, you see. Murder, sex and money.
After
all
that,
of them on offer here.
After that, everything goes downhill.
As the people come here to the exhibition, can they buy the various illustrations?
Well, they can buy a poster, or they can buy a catalogue, or they can buy an actual, original, unique picture.
Yes, but the problem is that art is very expensive, modern art. Only is That's the problem, because there is only one of each piece, no? So only certain people can afford them.
And what's the most anyone has offered so far?
Well,
Probably
it starts from 50,000 to 200 to 350,000 pounds a piece.
Really? And so you can take the maths of that with, you just said 291 pictures.
Pictures, yeah.
291 times 300,000
So
is
we're doing a very good sum here.
not bad.
It doesn't work quite like that, but
And here those lurid words that I bet there were more, as you were hinting there, more headlines with murder in it than any other, weren't there?
Yeah, we found like 60 here.
huge subject.
But it is like a Dickens, what you call, story in some way.
City lawyer, murder trial up there.
Students, police, spy, everything is included. So it is the modern world.
Well, this is absolutely fascinating. Let's stroll over and find somewhere where we can take a seat and just carry on with this conversation.
Wonderful.
How about that?
How wonderful.
There's no doubt that in the last 40 or 50 years, East London and so on has changed so much. Have the changes been reflected in the headlines that you've seen and so on? Do you think this exhibition reflects the changes in London as well?
No, we wouldn't feel that. No, I think, as we said earlier, we're trying to create our tomorrows, to make the tomorrows. It shows London in a vague way, but of course none of the pictures look like any particular scene in London. They're quite artificial, really.
But we do like very much East London, because that's how we started in 68, 69, and it was just incredible place to be. It felt like you were walking into a Dickens novel. Huh?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. And after that, it became so important for creative thoughts. No? All the artists, designers, or fashion designer, and artists, they all moved there. No? And now, not only everybody who wants to be artistic has to move towards East London, from Europe, from America, from Asia, from Japan. They're all in East London. So it's a melting pot of creativity.
And when you first met, when did you first meet?
We met at St Martin's School of Art in the Charing Cross Road in 1967.
Perfect timing there, perfect. 1967.
In September, the 25th.
And so, and in the time, in 50 years, near enough 50 years, things have changed. How much in that time?
It's just incredible, because the church has become an event centre, the vicarage has become a gallery, the synagogue has become a mosque, the kosher wine shop has become a Hindi music centre, the old Polish delicatessen is an adult clothing shop. We even say that the gents' public lavatories on Whitechapel became an Indian restaurant. Extraordinary.
Did they really? That's amazing. And is there much more talk about, headlines about, but talk about sex? I mean, sex is much more of an issue now and much more written about now than it was in 1967.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
We think religion is more written about than it ever was.
Really?
Oh, yes.
When we were children, you were taught never to discuss money or sex or religion. Yes, it was something just not at table anyway. Yeah? But now every newspaper you open is filled with sex. It's quite extraordinary. Sex and religion, really.
Sex, the vicars are very, what you call, even because we are quite very anti-religion ourselves. Our motto is ban religion.
Ban religion and decriminalize sex is our second big campaign. Right. Because all over the world, as we speak, there are people being incarcerated or executed for sexual behavior. It's quite extraordinary. Yeah.
Because we believe we only manage to liberate ourselves, like in Europe, a little North America, and the rest of the world is still in big turmoil about sexuality.
You've called it, other people call it too, that today there is democratic art. Art has become more democratic. Do you feel that's true?
That was one of our aims always. We always use the slogan, art for all, because we wanted to do an art that addressed the thoughts and feelings that exist in everybody in the world wherever they lived, not elitist or specialized or deliberately, willfully puzzling. So we say we're dealing with death,
hope,
life,
fear,
sex,
money,
race,
and religion.
That's all there is, and we circle around those subjects. And therefore, whoever it is, whatever their educational background, whatever their age, they will be able to be spoken to in some way, on some level.
When you mention all those fascinating subjects, do you, when you actually come to cover them in your art and so on, do you ever need to censor yourselves about something that you decide
Yes.
we won't put that in?
Yes, we do that. We have done that. Because we had in 1990, we did an enormous show in Moscow in a museum, and we showed like 40, 50 big pictures, and we did censor ourselves in some way. And we had a big show in China in 93 in 2 museums, and again, we had to censor ourselves because we want to get away with it. We don't want to close down the show.
Right. Tell me about Underneath the Arches.
Underneath the Arches is an extraordinary thing.
Underneath the arches.
We do it often, yes. But we never know why we chose to find a table, a stick and a glove and one old record and make that into a sculpture. And it was such an extraordinary way to introduce ourselves into the world of art. It opened in New York in 1971, and it was so successful, the little gallery on West Broadway, that the police department were called out with helicopters. They didn't know why that district was suddenly filled with, this normally empty district was filled with thousands of people. It was extraordinary. And of course, we always say that we were trying to find things that agreed with us, that had that human element. So we found this song. We at that time had no money. We'd never been the creeps who would get a job in a college or anything. And so we were just left alone, like tramps in a way. So we said, the Ritz we never sigh for, the Carlton they can keep.
There
There's only one place that I know, and that is where I sleep. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones we lay. Every night you'll find me, tired out and worn, happy when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn. Sleeping when it's raining, and sleeping when it's fine. La-dee-dee-dee-da-da-da-da-da-da. Pavement is my pillow, no matter where I stray. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away.
Sweet dreams to you both.
Very good.
This week, Spain emerged, well, victorious really, from a political dispute with the rest of the Eurozone over its budget deficit. Fearing recession and with an unemployment rate of 23%, Spain won concessions from Europe, despite missing budget deficit targets for this year, the whole of this year. The Spanish government remains defiant. It will meet those ultimate budget targets, the deficit target, next year. But this month, it announced it wouldn't make it this year. The Eurozone has bowed to the Spanish pleas and has agreed to a deficit delay. But why is Spain missing its targets, and why is Europe offering Spain special treatment? I'm joined now from Madrid by the Spanish Minister for the Economy and for Competitiveness, Luis de Guindos. Your Excellency, Mr. de Guindos, Spain has said it can't meet these EU targets of deficit reduction. Your government is now expected to slash its deficit to around 5.3% of GDP rather than the original target, which was to get it down by 4.4, or to 4.4. What is the main reason then that Spain was not able to manage 4.4%?
I think that there are two main reasons why we are not going to meet the 4.4 target that was initially forecast in our stability program. The first one is that last year we had a slippage in the public accounts, and instead of a deficit of 6%, well, we reached finally a deficit that is a little bit above 8.5%. So it was an important overrun, and so the starting point of the effort of the new government was much higher, and so the effort has to be much more intense than in the previous forecasts. And secondly, there is a second reason. To meet the target of 4.4% for 2012, you know, the macroeconomic baseline scenario was much more optimistic than the reality that we are starting to notice right now. You know, this 4.4% was prepared with a growth rate of 2.3%. And this scenario has been dramatically revised downwards, and now we are going to have a negative growth of minus 1.7%. So these are the two differences. First of all, the starting point, and secondly, a worsening macroeconomic scenario for 2012.
And tell me, as Spain has been offered some leeway and flexibility on its targets, as we were saying there, do you think this leniency should be copied elsewhere? Or do you think if other countries were to get the same leeway and flexibility, that this would undermine the credibility of the whole EU?
Not at all. I think that the position of Spain and the new target for 2012 does not undermine at all the credibility of the fiscal compact and the fiscal agreement that we have within the boundaries of the euro. First of all, because the Spanish government is fully committed with fiscal adjustment, with fiscal consolidation. The target for 2013 is going to be 3%, the target, the fiscal deficit target, 3%. And the only thing that we do is to modify a little bit, the path of the adjustment and the convergence towards this target of 3% next year.
Now, I'm looking here at a photograph of you being apparently strangled, as it were, by Eurogroup head Jean-Claude Juncker on Monday at the Eurozone meeting. The caption reads that he is playfully strangling. So there was nothing serious going on, was there?
No, not at all. I think that Mr. Juncker is a very spontaneous person. He's a good friend of mine, and we have a very good personal relationship.
Well, it's good to know it was all happily resolved in the end. Now, Belgium seems to be sticking to its deficit goals and came up with nearly 2 billion euros of extra spending cuts to make their target. Portugal and the Netherlands are also fixed on meeting their targets. How is it that they can do this and Spain can't?
Well, I think that there is a global situation that I think that we have to bear in mind and to take into consideration. First of all, unfortunately, the forecasts that we had only 6 months ago are not becoming a reality. Now, what we are seeing, in general terms, is a downward revision of all the outlook, the economic outlook, all over Europe, and I think that this is having an impact on the fiscal policy of many countries. But what I would like to stress is that Spain is making a tremendous effort of fiscal consolidation, of fiscal adjustment. You have to take into consideration that last year we had a fiscal deficit target of 8.5%, and we are going to reduce this deficit until 5.3%. So I think that, on structural terms, this effort is huge, and not only on structural terms, but also on nominal terms. So I could not say at all that we are undermining the fiscal adjustment effort of the Spanish government. What we are doing is to modify a little bit, the rhythm of reduction of the deficit towards next year target, that is 3%. But I could not say at all that we are modifying that situation.
And whenever one has a discussion, of course, about debt, very soon the conversation inevitably moves from debt to the potential solution, which of course is growth. Are you confident of achieving the growth and job creation you need at the moment in this time of austerity? 2012
is going to be a tough year, but our prospects, our outlook for the next year is much brighter. And I think that what we are doing is, through the process of fiscal consolidation and through the reform agenda of the Spanish government, what we want to do is to create confidence and to create credibility on the situation of the Spanish economy and the future performance of the Spanish economy. So I would say that we are going to have difficulties in the short term, but in the medium term, for sure, that we will have a recovery in terms of growth and in terms of employment.
And which reforms would you particularly like to see?
Well, we have approved, a very important labor market reform in Spain. Spain has been the worst performing economy in terms of the labor market. If no other country has suffered the process of job destruction that Spain has suffered since the beginning of the crisis 4 years ago. So we think, and the new government believes, that this was due in great part to the labor market regulation that we had in Spain. So we have overhauled these regulations, and we have modified all the elements of this labor market situation in order to introduce flexibility and to start to create jobs.
And would you like to see Spain receive a haircut on its debt, similar to Greece's haircut?
No, I think that that's totally, out of the question. The situation of the Spanish economy is totally different than the situation of, countries that have received a sort of bailout program. In Spain, we are financing our governments without any sort of problem. Spain, is a very dynamic economy in the near future. Our situation is totally different. We have the capacity to recover growth, and what we have to do is to put a little bit of order in our public accounts and to overhaul the regulation of the labor market that has impaired the Spanish economy over the last 3-4 years.
In Greece, we've all seen there's a growing anti-German sentiment. People there believe that the Germans have forced them into grinding poverty. Is this sort of resentment against Germany, even jealousy perhaps, also apparent in Spain?
No, not at all. Germany, is a friend country, not only for the Spanish government, but also the Spanish population, really feel very close to the German country and to the German government and the German population. You have to take into consideration that Germans come down to Spain very often to spend their vacations, their holidays, and we have very close ties with the German population. I do not see any sort of misunderstanding in that regard. I would say that we have very close ties and very close links with Germany and with the German government.
And what about the youth and the unemployment issue? There's almost, 50% unemployment among the young in Spain? Some people blame that on the education system, which has been criticised for being too weak at the moment. Is that a fair observation?
Well, I think that that's part of the problem. I fully agree with you that youth unemployment is totally unacceptable in Spain. You cannot have youth unemployment close to 50% of the labor force, of the young labor force. This is something totally unacceptable on political, social and economic terms. So I think that this is the main target. This is going to be the main target of the Spanish government and the main goal of the Spanish government to overhaul that situation. That's why I think that the labor market reform is vital, as I have said, and we have included new contracts that are especially very favorable for young population. And simultaneously, I think that it has to do with education. The education system in Spain has to be improved, has to be much more market oriented, to give to our young students the skills that they need to find a job, not only in Spain, but all over Europe.
Well, we must say a huge thank you to you. You've given us a very clear picture of Spain at the moment. It's a pleasure to have this conversation. Here's to the next one.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much to you.
Thank you very much. And that's all for this week, I'm afraid. My thanks to all of my guests. Please join us again just 7 days from now for another Frost Over the World. Goodbye for now.